Here's how to tie the anchor hitch. Start by taking the end of the rope and going 2 times around the object. Now take the end and go over and underneath both of these loops. And tighten it as much as you can before proceeding next. Then take the end and again go around the standing end, and this time tuck it underneath itself over here, creating another half hitch. It's essentially a very strong hitch that is very unlikely to untie even with heavy or intermittent loads. It's actually very similar to the round turn and 2 half hitches knot, except here the first half hitch goes underneath both of these loops, making it more reliable and stronger. Use it anytime you need to attach something heavy to a pipe, a pole, or something similar. To learn other useful knots, subscribe to our channel. Here's how to tie a perfect trucker's hitch. Start by taking the end of the rope and creating a bight. Then go underneath the standing end, put this strand over this one, then go over, under, and through this last loop. In the end, you should end up with a directional figure of 8 loop. Then take the end of the rope and go through the support, through the loop that you just created, and pull on it as hard as you can. You'll be able to adjust the tension pretty tight because here you have a 3-to-1 mechanical advantage. Now pinch these two together so that the tension holds and go around and through itself to create a half hitch. And to fully secure it, do another half hitch. And that's how a finished trucker's hitch should look like. It's called the trucker's hitch because it's usually used to secure loads on trucks, trailers, and car roofs. But because of the mechanical advantage, you can also use it in situations like this, where you need to tension a rope for a hammock, a tent, or something similar. To learn other useful knots, subscribe to our channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Here's how to tie the Super Munter hitch. First, tie a regular Munter hitch by going through the carabiner, then around the lowering end, and finally back through the carabiner, but over to the other side. And to tie the Super Munter, again go around the lowering end and through the carabiner, but this time exiting over to the other side. Because of this additional step, it has more friction compared to the regular Munter hitch. This is really useful when you need to lower something very heavy. For example, in search and rescue, or when lowering very heavy climbing gear. One issue with the regular Munter hitch is that as you descend, the rope tends to twist and turn and sometimes even gets stuck. This doesn't happen with the Super Munter hitch because the additional step kind of evens everything out and the rope doesn't twist and turn anymore. To learn other useful knots, subscribe to our channel. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Here's how to tie the square knot. Start by placing both rope ends next to one another and then wrapping the second one around the first one. Now again, place both of them next to one another and wrap the right one around the left one, like this. Finish, pull both ropes while holding the rope ends, then release them and pull again. Make sure to leave the ends rather long because this knot tends to slip if pulled with a lot of force. For very simple applications, this knot is secure enough to connect to shorter ropes. If you want something more secure, you could do 2 turns around each rope instead of 1. But once tightened and put under load, it becomes pretty much a big mess that's very hard to untie. A much better solution would be to tie a figure-8 bend knot instead, which we covered in another video. To learn other useful knots, subscribe to our channel. Here's how to tie the double overhand stopper knot. Form a loop at the end of the rope, then take the end and go through another time, and tighten the knot. On the finished knot, the rope should be parallel on one side and form an X on the other. But if you'll be tying it after a figure-8 follow-through or other knots, there's another technique that works better. Put your thumb on the rope and go over it with the end of the rope. Now go over it once again, but this time form an X. And lastly, take out your thumb and put the end of the rope through the loops that you just made. This knot is considered to be one of the best stopper knots because it's strong, it's easy to tie and check, and it's somewhat easy to untie as well. It's most commonly used for securing other knots like the figure 8 follow through and the figure 8 bend. But you can also use this knot to connect two ropes together by making two of these knots in the opposite directions. In this variation, it's called the double fisherman knot. To learn other useful knots, subscribe and check out our channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Here's how to tie the taut line hitch. Start by wrapping the free end around the object. Then go around the standing end twice in the direction of the loop. Now take the end and cross over and do another turn in the same direction. And finally tug the end underneath itself like this. It's a very simple slide and grip knot that you can use anytime you need to tension the guy lines of your tent or your tarp, or if you need to make a close hanging line. If it still slides when you pull on it, you can do 3 turns or even 4 turns before finally finishing the knot. This will make it harder to slide, but it will have much more friction. And that's how a finished taut line hitch should look like. To learn other useful knots, subscribe to our channel. Here's how to tie a Yosemite bowline knot. Start by creating a loop near the end of the rope. Then take the end and go through it from the back side, then around the standing end, and finally back through the loop. You've essentially now created a regular bowline knot. The Yosemite finish just adds another step to it. So to create the Yosemite finish, take the end of the rope and go outside of the loop, then around the right side of it, and finally back through, exiting right next to the standing end. And finally, tighten the knot. A regular bowline knot can untie under heavy loads if a stopper knot isn't used on the end. Adding the Yosemite finish adds more reliability to the knot. You can use it in all kinds of situations, even when climbing to attach to anchor points or to your climbing harness. To learn other useful knots, subscribe to our channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Here's how to tie the Alpine butterfly bend. Take the end of the first rope and wrap it around your left hand once and place the end between your two fingers like this. Now take the end of the second rope, place it next to the first one and wrap it around once again like this so that both ends cross over here. Finally, take the ends of both ropes with your other hand, place them over and underneath the two bottom strands to finish the knot. Use it anytime you need to connect two ropes. It's very secure and super easy to learn, which is why it's a really useful knot to know. You can even use it for critical situations like climbing, but remember to keep the tag ends pretty long to account for slippage while the knot settles in. To learn other useful knots, subscribe to our channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Here's how to tie the Farrimond friction hitch knot. Start by taking the end of the rope and going around the anchor point that you'll be using. Now take the end of the rope and create another closed loop in front of the standing end, something like this. Now take the bight that you just created and go around the standing end. For a more secure knot, go around twice, like this. Now take the end of the knot, create another bight, and go through the last bight that you just created. Now tighten everything by pulling on each rope separately until the knot is fully tightened. This knot can be a bit difficult to tighten, so just keep pulling on each of the strings separately until the final knot feels somewhat tight. When you pull on the rope, the size of the adjustable loop shouldn't tighten by itself, but at the same time you should be able to adjust the size of it very easily with just one hand. This knot is most commonly used in camping for various tarp setups. But the best part about this knot is that you can untie it very easily just by pulling this string. To learn other useful knots, subscribe and check out our channel. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Here's how to tie the Fisherman's bend knot. Start by placing both rope ends next to one another. Then tie a simple overhand knot around the first rope and tighten it. Now tie another overhand knot with the other rope facing in the other direction. And finally, pull each rope in the opposite directions until they slide together. The best part about this knot is that it is extremely easy to tie because everyone knows how to tie an overhand knot just from tying their shoes. It's also really secure. It won't come undone only if you pull it with extremely heavy loads or if the rope itself is very slippery. But with most types of ropes, this knot is more than reliable enough, even when being pulled with a good amount of force. To learn other useful knots, subscribe to our channel. Here's how to tie the Prusik hitch knot. It's most commonly used in climbing to climb up a rope because as you pull it, it provides a lot of friction. But as you release it, you can freely move the knot upwards the rope. To tie this knot, you first need to get a Prusik loop, which is essentially a fixed loop which is created with a double fisherman's knot. Place the end of the loop in front of the rope and then take the other end and wrap it around the rope. Now continue wrapping it around another 2 or 3 times. Now take the end with the knot and pull it to one side. And finally, dress this knot so that in the end it looks exactly like this. It's important to do this part because it improves the overall friction. If you pull on it and it still slides, then you can wrap it around another time. The good thing about the Prusik loop is that you can load it in both directions and it still works just as fine. Its only downside is that it will not work with frozen or wet rope. In these instances, it's better to use a mechanical Prusik. To ascend a rope using Prusik loops, you need to get 2 loops, one on top and one at the bottom. You need to attach the top one to your climbing harness and you can place your feet through the bottom one. Essentially, you need to pull up the top Prusik loop, then the bottom one, then again the first one, and by doing this you can slowly and safely climb up a climbing rope. To learn other useful knots, make sure to subscribe. Thanks for watching and I'll see you next time. Here's how to tie the halter hitch. Take the end of the rope and go around the support. Now go around the standing end, then make a bite at the end of the rope and pass it through itself like this. Finally, tighten the knot and then pull the standing end so that the knot sits right against the support. It's pretty much the simplest quick release hitch out there. Despite its simplicity, it's still considered a somewhat secure hitch. Now, of course, it isn't reliable enough to trust with your life as with pretty much all quick release hitches, but for most applications, it's secure enough. To release it, simply pull on the tag end and the knot comes undone. To learn other useful knots, subscribe to our channel. Thanks for watching and I'll see you next time.